Welcome, everybody, to Helping the Brave podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Amy T. and we have Ed Parco here, and then also another Navy veteran. And Danyell, I'm going to not say your last name so I don't mess it up.
That's all right. It's Danyell Adamski.
Adamski. Come on, how hard is that? Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure they said different things in high school. Anyway.
that's my married name. So,
right. To your husband.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
And he probably kicked their butt. So, yeah.
No, actually, he was kind of skinny back then, and that's why he works out now. So that I think there's like this whole, he was teased so much that now he's like, I'm going to show you how big and bad I am.
Funny. Yeah. I think my husband's the same way. Well, we want to always share our transition stories. And so you were in the Navy. Tell us what you did and tell us about you.
That, why did you choose the Navy? Not that it's not the greatest service, but why did you choose the Navy?
Yeah, well, because it is the greatest service. I mean, let's be honest here. I'm just teasing. I love everyone. I think I chose it because mainly because I love water. I live on the water right now. I was just a fish when I was growing up, and I thought like in the Navy, you'd be near water, and it's true. I was near water. I was in San Diego.
Very good.
So what did you do in the Navy?
So I was an aviation electrician. So I was on North Island, and basically I worked at the AIMD and tested circuit boards because I wanted to be an electrical engineer. Like when I grew up, got out of the military. So I thought it would be a good, position to have, obviously electronics, learning about that. So it was a really good job for a really long time. So yeah.
Very good. So then, how did you transition out, and what did you do next?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in my 40s, and it's been a long time. I joined when I was 17 and a half, and I was in the service for 5.5 years. I actually have spinal bifida, which is, so I got a disability out of the whole thing. They shouldn't have let me in. I have spinal bifida. I had surgery. So I ended up staying longer than what I was expected to be in there. So I was in there for 5.5 years, getting surgery after surgery until they felt that I was okay to get out. So once they kicked me out, I ended up going to Kettering University, which is an engineering college here in Michigan. So I came back home and went to engineering school just like I had expected and wanted to do. And I went there. That was like a couple years in engineering college. And then after that, I joined a company where I got to, program robots, all that kind of stuff. And then after that, I started helping people to save their marriage. So I was actually getting a lot of people coming to my office for their counseling sessions once a week. And I started doing that while I was at work, not realizing that was what I would end up doing later on. But that's actually what ended up sparking this. Maybe I'm good at this. Maybe I should do this for a living. And so that's what I started to do. I transitioned from military to college, from college to, working 20 years in a career. And then from there, I started working for myself.
So in the 20 years that you worked, did you retire there, or did you just like, I'm done, I got to go do this other thing, this is my real calling?
In that time, yeah, I think it was a progression. It wasn't something that I could do right away. I wasn't, I guess, that bold or brave to actually just quit without actually making some money first. So I transitioned really slowly into being a coach and a consultant for people. So it took a bit. And I wouldn't recommend anyone to just like leap unless they have, a ton of faith and a ton of money. But I did slowly do it just because it is something that was a passion for me. And I kept hearing over and over again, maybe you should do this for a living. And so I took courses and, I didn't get, I got certified in personal leadership from Columbia University, but I did not go back and get like a psychology degree. And honestly, I don't even need one because I spent a lot of time reading. I spent many years studying, learning everything I needed to learn in order to help other people.
So, all right. So you were doing counseling for married couples. You still do that, right? That's what you do now?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do now. So basically, I advertise on Facebook and I get someone to watch my webinar and they watch the webinar. Once they watch the webinar, they book a call with me. And when we get on that call, I determine if it's a fit. I look and see what type of problems they are having in their marriage. And then I find out if it's a problem that I solve and that I know I can solve it, that I'm 100% certain that I can solve it. And if I can solve it, then I look for specific traits in that person to see if they would be the type of person that would succeed in my program. And then if it is a fit between the both of us, then I invite them into my program and we get started. And within 6 weeks, I can help them save their marriage.
That's exciting.
It's so exciting. It is so exciting because a lot of times, even after just like the first video I send them, I did a workshop once called Understanding Men. So after like 2.5 hours, they said they're almost all of them are sending me back an email. Danyell, I wish I would have known this a long time ago. This would have saved me a lot of trouble. So I think it's just misinformation, people not understanding each other. And once you understand each other, how everybody thinks, then it just seems to go so much smoother. And so I've been able to save a lot of people from divorce.
That is really cool. So we always ask everyone, like, what do you use today that you learned from being in the military?
Yeah, I think, there's so many good things. I think everyone should join the service personally. I think you learn so many good things. Like my stepdad was he was in the Army and then he went into the Marines. And I think one of the things that he taught me was discipline. I wasn't a very disciplined kid, but he taught me more discipline than many other parents were teaching their kids at the time. And so when I was in the service, I was that one person. There's several people, but leaders, right? Like you can be the leader of the company and stuff like that. So I stood out as somebody that was wanting to take the next level, always getting promoted, studying, doing that thing. So I'm like that learner, geeky kind of person who wants to excel. I think what I learned from the military is that you have to be consistent, you have to be persistent, and you have to get up once you get kicked down, you knock down, something like that, right? So what I'm teaching people is, why are they doing the things that they're doing? Like why do they want to stay in their marriage? Why do they do the things that they do? And I think when you're in the service, you have a big why. You have a big reason for why you're there. And so I teach them, why do you really want to be in this relationship, and what do you value about this relationship? And so I teach them how to become more disciplined in the things that they do for their spouse. Like hypothetically, right? You get married, over time you stop doing certain things that you did when you first were married. So I help them to learn how to go back to being more disciplined with the actions that actually support having a good marriage. Like, meeting your husband at the front door, I mean, is a simple example, with a nice kiss. And, how was your day? It's simple stuff like that, instead of sitting on the couch, perhaps like you have been when they come home. Right? So stuff like that is what I've learned. But I'm a very disciplined person and always have been. And so I take that into my program, and that's a lot of what I teach, is how do you become more disciplined in your actions, your words, your thoughts.
Well, I'll give you my wife's phone number so you can tell her to come to the front door for me, meet me like that.
Yeah, no problem. I can hook you up.
Yeah.
Give her a tune-up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, she kicked my ass anyway. No, I think you have to respect each other. You have to have certain things, and I think a lot of people just never saw relationships when they grew up. I knew that was my case. My dad died when I was 12. My mom didn't, remarry till later. I didn't know what a relationship was. It took me a couple of marriages to figure this shit out, and I think it's important if you can get any help along the way to make it easier, get the help.
Yeah, I think you're right. You don't have the examples. You don't always have the examples. And if you've come from divorced family after divorced family, like your parents and your grandparents and all everyone around you is divorced, it's just something that you think is that's the next logical step if you can't solve these problems, instead of actually seeking out an expert that understands the mind and how mindset works and how your emotions work. Those are the things that they need to teach in school so that you can learn how to have a strong mindset in order to weather those storms that marriage can bring. It's not always rosy.
Well, and I think there's, room for creativity. Like, my husband works long hours, so oftentimes I'm in bed before he even comes home,
Sure.
or vice versa. If I have an event, I'm, coming home much later than he is, or off times, but it doesn't mean that those things aren't important. And if our relationship is important, then it's up to us to find the things. So whether it's little notes in lunch boxes or messages, you know what I mean? Messages on the fridge or something like that. It matters because I think our spouse is who we're supposed to be treating the best. However we speak to anybody else is all great, but how we treat our spouse is supposed to be the very best. And
Yeah.
that's what makes marriages good. Like there's so many times when I think Mark and I will go places and they're like, wow, are you guys just recently married? And I'm like, recently, maybe 15 years. I don't know. It's relative. There's people that's been married for 70. So compared to them, yes, maybe. But it's, because I think you have to get to fun with your marriage.
You
If it's
do.
not, right? I mean, I think, and sometimes you need, practice marriages. And it is the way it is because you have expectations when you're young.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it is the expectations that people have and what defines success. Like, what does success mean to them? I was just listening to something that Michael Burnoff, remember him? He had this igniting momentum, and he was talking about success. And a lot of times, people say that a successful marriage is my husband gives me flowers on these days. We're intimate X amount of days a week. We do this and this and this and this. And like, there's this list that a spouse has to do in order to be like a good spouse or make it a successful marriage, instead of saying like, marriage is successful if you put, my marriage is successful if I have a love note. And, or we go to bed at the same time, or he brings me flowers occasionally, or we kiss, when he walks through the door, or like, instead of saying, and it has to have all of these things to be considered successful or good, or a lot of it, and success breeds success. And so a lot of times that's what I'm teaching people in the relationship, is how they end up focusing on all these things that aren't right, they're not doing the things that they think is important in order to be happy. And so they're picking like a million things from their spouse that they need. It's making it seem like it's a list that no one could possibly meet. Nobody, not even themselves, right? Like, when I start looking at them and they start looking at themselves, these women realize, wow, maybe I could have been a better spouse. Maybe that's really what was part of the problem. And that doesn't become it doesn't get into their awareness until after I start asking these questions. So in my program, I have a workbook that each week they work through, and like things just come to the surface that they were either ignoring or purposefully not wanting to take a look at. And then once they see what they're doing and how they're doing and how it's affected the relationship, then they start feeling regretful, remorseful. Oh no, what can I do? How can I be better? And then they step into that better version of themselves. And that's when their marriage really takes a turn.
Now I'm curious, do you work with couples or only females or males? I mean, I'm just
Well, I
curious.
used to work with just males because I've always obviously been around a lot of men and, from the military. And then I went to an engineering college, which was almost all male. Then I worked in a male dominated manufacturing facility. So I spent most of my time with men. So when I started my coaching, obviously I was coaching the men that were coming into my office. And so I started coaching men on what women were looking for. Like, how do you get your wife to come back to you? Let's say she's having an affair or whatever. How do you get that woman to turn back around and say, oh, recommit to the marriage? And so I worked with them for a long time. And then I had this brilliant idea to start working with couples. And I worked with couples for a long time. And then I started working with women on helping them to understand men and understand why men are leaving their wives. Why are they just saying, I don't want to be with you anymore? So to answer your question, I work with anyone that needs help. So men, women, it doesn't matter to me because I can help pretty much anybody.
Very cool.
Is it?
It is very cool. Sorry. Well, I think, making the world a better place by, having better relationships and stuff like that, it works for everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, when you're in the service, right, you have even bigger challenges because you don't see your spouse a lot of times, right? You're deployed or you just don't get a chance to connect like you normally would. And so sometimes the absence makes the heart grow fonder. And then sometimes it's absence makes the heart just disappear and go find somebody else. And I've seen that quite a bit. And that's pretty sad. And that's hard to see.
Yeah, and also a lot of times people get married right away. One leaves and they hadn't had time to work on that marriage.
Yeah, certainly. That's a big part of it. And then when you get back together and you're living like a regular life, right? You get a house or an apartment or, you're in a condo or base housing or whatever. And then you're actually like, wow, that person's shoes are really annoying. And they're leaving their stuff all over the place. And so all of a sudden, like this whole fantasy of how the relationship was going to be is that it's a fantasy. It's not real. And then that's when the expectations and that's when people really start to get disappointed. And they spend many years disappointed in their marriage. And they don't even get divorced. They're just disappointed for like a really long time.
I think that's, I think it goes back to your spouse is supposed to be the person that you treat the best. And and you're right, but everything is tied to expectations and different things. I always think that life is hard. My marriage should be easy. Because I think even a lot of your solutions, they're simple if used correctly. You know what I mean? But they're not crazy complicated because I think people aren't crazy complicated. We think they are, but they're not. Being kind is not that.
And just ones and zeros. That's what I tell everybody. They're like ones and zeros, man. They're like computers. You put this in and you're going to get this out. Like, it's just like repeat.
Are you saying that most guys are simple? Is that what you're saying?
I think men are so simple, and I love that. I absolutely love working with men because, to me, they have bigger hearts than women. Honestly, they love their wives way more than women love their husbands. It appears from the surface after listening to them so much when they do. Because they don't always open up to their wives, right, about their true feelings. They have to act all tough sometimes. But with me, I'm like, let's get real here. This is heartbreaking. This is awful. And then the real truth comes out about, how they feel and what they wish their wife knew. And a lot of times, so if there's any ladies out there listening, your husband loves you way more than you think. If you could just realize that right now, you will be in better shape than most people. I mean, once I realized that my husband loved me as much, like more than I could imagine, then I stopped bitching and complaining and expecting and nagging and all this stuff. I just realized that he's trying the best that he can try. He's doing his best. And while he may be working on things I don't want him to work on, and he thinks those are the most important things, right? Like he's got in his own mind what he thinks he needs to do for me. And so I realize now that everything he does is for our family.
And I think it's important to hang around with other people who love their spouse, not with other people who hate their spouse. I mean, because that's the biggest problem. You know, a lot of people hang around with people and they, I hate and it's like, we don't want to hang around with you. That's not.
Yeah. You're not my people.
No, I don't need that. That's years ago. We've been married for 17 years, best 17 years. I mean, we've had our ups and downs with kids, of course, right?
Sure.
You can't control your kids.
Or your grandkids.
Well, those you can just like, here's some candy, here's some stuff. It's now give back.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are the best. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any grandkids yet. We have an 18-year-old just graduated, so. And we have a 15-year-old. She's going into high school. So, yeah. You're right. You can't control the kids. You can't control your spouse either, even if you want to.
Right.
Well, and I think, go for it, Ed.
No, I was going to even if you try. So don't even try.
Well, I think a lot of times they do try, right? A lot of women do try. And I think
or change them.
Yeah, they try to change them. And what ends up happening, right, is you're pushing somebody away and you're also telling them over and over again that they're not good enough. And when somebody thinks that they're not good enough for you over and over and over again, eventually they decide, yeah, you're right. And then they leave.
Yeah.
All right, I'm getting depressed.
Are you? No, I think it's so. I think I think these things are funny. My husband is on a recent business trip, we'll say it that way. Yeah. And before he left, he felt it was super important to get the shed coordinated. And it was super funny to me to watch this man put all this time into the shed in the backyard. But I will say that while he's been gone, it has been such a nice thing to go in and everything's kind of in its order and I can reach everything. And so he did a really good job with that. But it was really humorous before he left to me to watch him do this thing that I didn't think would have any impact. But it ended up having way more impact than I had expected. And, you know, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, you know, how he prepares for a business trip or something like that. And so, so I think that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
So I know. Basically what you're saying, he knew exactly what to do for you and you didn't think so. And then now you're saying, oh, by the way, so would you like to say something?
So thank you,
what you
Mark,
don't know,
he listens
to these. He listens to these.
He does. And so, yes. So thank you for getting the shed in order.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else?
I miss you. Yes. I love you. I miss you.
And I respect you. Don't forget. I respect you.
Well, now he's going to say, she just read that because that's not what she says to me. That's not her.
I say I love you very often. I feel he knows he did not marry a romantic woman. So it is, somebody made a comment and he's like, not one bone in her body is romantic, guys.
Well, that way he never gets into trouble.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
That's right.
You never bring me flowers.
See, no, he gets flowers for me all the time. He is really good about flowers because I do love flowers, but he brings them at home. So I'll wake up and walk upstairs in the kitchen and there's flowers there, which I love. I will say my ex-husband used to send flowers to work, which was nice, but it was more, I think, because of the audience, and it was only maybe once a year. And Mark gets me flowers all the time, and so that's nice.
God, I'm going to hear the end of this.
That is so sweet. Oh, you're gonna have to get some flowers.
I'm going to have to get
Make a note.
I get flowers. It's just
He does get flowers. He has a neat flower story, but I won't say it because he just says I say all his stories. And
no,
I
you just tell Steve Sims everything I tell you. It's like, okay, why do I need? From now on, I'll just tell you. You can call him afterwards.
I'll try to do that.
Yeah. You don't have to. You're already doing it. What happened was my birthday was recent, and Steve's did a shout out that I was 60 years old, and then and that was because of her. She's like, "You got to do this. You got to do this." And the next day, I'm at Rotary and other places, and they're like, "You're 60?" I'm like, "No, I'm not 60."
It was that is a great practical joke. It was so funny.
Just remember that.
Yes.
Remember that something like that is a great practical joke.
I don't care about my age.
Just remember.
Yeah, right? I'm not going to do it about your age. Well, I wouldn't do something that you don't care about. Yeah. Revenge.
You two have been friends way too long. I can tell.
We haven't been that long. It's only been a couple speakeasies.
Oh, really?
Yep. We met. All three of us met at the same time. Yeah. Who knew?
No way.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh. I just finally got her out of her shell to get on this show.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's from the speakeasy.
And we've had a few hosts and things are moving on for them. They've had some things that come up. They'll come back, but we'll have other people. But we always are looking for additional hosts to be on here because this is not just my vision. This is helping everybody transition out of the military through life. What do you need? How can we help you? You got PTSD issues. We'll get somebody on here to talk about that. You have these other issues. We got all that. We've had multiple people on here talking about different things. And, not everybody can join us during the time period that we have it live. And that's okay. That's why it's on YouTube. That's why it's, there for later to listen to.
But somebody could might watch this and it could be, to that relationship person. I really think I need to talk to them and we can shoot them your information or your website. Recommend one of your books. And because we want better marriages, we want, our not to have a 50% divorce rate, I think, which is what the average is right now. It would be lovely to have it at where people are happily married.
Yeah.
Well, I think it all has to do with how I made a list. I don't know, everybody does it, but I made a list what I wanted in somebody. My wife made a list also. Everybody told each one of us we would never get it. The only thing she wasn't on mine was 5'9". She's 5'4". The only thing I wasn't, and I mean, I went all the way through. I wanted somebody professional. I wanted to have a degree. I wanted this. I wanted that because I've had issues in the past with my other marriages, and I figured out what that didn't work and what I wanted. Right. The only thing I wasn't on hers was fireman. She thought she wanted me gone every other night. So, yeah, she's a nurse. Yeah.
See, I know people.
Yeah.
I know people.
And I barely made her age range for what she wanted older and stuff. Older age, not younger. So I'm just saying you have to make, no matter where you are in life, you have to plan what you want for a career. You have to plan for what you want. You need to plan for certain things. This is what I told my daughter the other day. I'm like, how are you, what are you doing? What are you planning? I'm not planning. I'm like, those who fail to plan to fail. And she's like, no, that doesn't work that way. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And then guess what happened after that? Car accident, totaled her car, anyway, move on. Plan.
Yeah, I totally agree that you need a plan and figuring out like how you are going to either get married to a certain person that you want, don't make those same mistakes again, or, just get the help that you need. When I talk about my program, I talk about it as being a map, like having a map. Once you have this map, then it's easy to follow. How do you save your marriage? I mean, you just follow this map. It's not that hard. Once you know how to do it and you've done it, like repeat, then you just do these things. And
I think it's the tie-in. Like I recognize that I'm a better wife to Mark than I was to my ex-husband. And you
Good
know,
luck.
and I'm well, and I did.
Mhm.
And now, that marriage I stayed in too long. I should have left earlier and blah, 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 how many. But there is those pieces that I know that I didn't like learning after that. I didn't realize how much he was trying, but I'm really glad that I didn't know that because I would have stayed longer and I shouldn't have. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
yeah.
there were just too much that was not copacetic. And so I'm really happily married now, but I feel like those things that you teach are important, and even though I'm happily married, I would imagine I should probably get one of your books because there might be things in there, tools and tricks that would still benefit us, even in what I consider a good marriage.
Yeah, I mean, I use the same stuff all the time. I mean, my husband's not perfect and neither am I, right? And I have to use the same things that I teach everyone else. How do you do that, How do you continuously have a good marriage? How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it exciting? How do you keep it to where the two of you are best friends and that no one gets in between, some other person gets in between and um, takes your place.
And I think communication, which a lot of people, we were in military, we all know how to communicate, but we still don't know how to communicate to your significant other. They hear
Yeah.
one thing and you're saying something totally different. So,
Well, I think a lot of it is that your feelings get hurt easier with your partner, right? Like it's just easier for you to hurt their buttons and you can push those buttons. And so and sometimes, when you get into arguments, if it's a really heated argument, you say things that you don't always mean. Something happened like 10 years ago and you're still talking about something that happened 10 years ago just because you haven't gotten over it. You haven't let it go. So I teach women and men, how do you let go of these things? How do you move past them? How do you just not even get into those fights? My husband and I haven't had a fight in years. I absolutely refuse to fight. There is no fighting in my house. I'm like, you're right. Yep. Okay. Can I go back to being happy? Like, you're right. I don't even care if he's right. Like, and a lot of women will say, well, doesn't it bother you that, you're not right? And I'm like, no, what bothers me is a big fight. What bothers me is getting like angry and having this, bad evening. I don't care if he's right about something really stupid. It's not relevant to me. I don't even care. I just go, yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
but you're not hearing me.
What do you mean? No, like, not. Well, it'll be something simple like, oh, we didn't go to that Applebee's for, so-and-so's party. We went to Lucky's instead. And I'll be like, no, at first I'll say, no, it was Lucky's. And he's like, no, it was Applebee's. I think you're misremembering. I'm like, you're right. Like, it's just stuff like that I just go, whatever. Like, not important to me. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit and argue as we're trying to go out to a nice dinner and we got the kids in the car. It's so not relevant whether or not we ate at Applebee's for this event or not. It's stuff like that to me that people will fight about, little stuff, just to be right, just to prove a point. And you don't need to do that. It's, like Dale Carnegie says, I'd rather just be happy than right.
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Mic drop time.
Yep.
I always ask a question, and let's. What are you using today that you learned in the military? We didn't ask that question, right? I'm sorry.
We did.
I don't think
we
did. We ask that one? Oh, right. Did you take that from me? Did you?
I
steal
did.
one? You.
So you can steal my question.
Nope. I don't do that. I'd rather be right than wrong.
Well, here's Amy. I'm always wrong, apparently. So that's all right with me. That's what I've learned.
Like, who cares, right?
I usually ask, do you do any volunteering?
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you love to volunteer
now
with?
You have to name everything for her. Because she's so much into volunteering, she still wants to be up on her pedestal.
No. So I like to showcase all the different places people volunteer. It's not at all about me. I will correct them on this one time.
Gotcha.
This one time. Can we get that in writing?
Yeah.
All right. So,
Okay, so I don't volunteer a ton, but I do volunteer at churches to help women's group. I do speaking at women's groups, clubs, any women's clubs that are around. Anytime women are having like their little parties or little get-togethers, they'll contact me, and I'll talk about basically marriage and how do you improve your marriage and how do you become your best self, those types of things. So
That's exciting. That's neat. I'm glad that you do that. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right. So we'll probably end here, but you can stay on. But I just want to say, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your transition story and kind of what you're doing now to make marriages better. I do enjoy the conversation. Ed?
I enjoy it too. Yes. Thanks for asking.
You two are too cute.
I'm just messing with her because she's trying to work this out. She's new to video. Just go. It's no big deal. Anyway, thank you for being here. It was nice getting to know you even more, even though I mentioned Speakeasy a couple times ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Perfect.
Remember,
All right.
we're here every Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. And then you can also find us on YouTube after the fact. Actually, we're live on YouTube right now. But go ahead, Amy, cut us out.